Hello and welcome to the second episode of Beyond Graves and Stars. My name's Andy and I'm a bit of a horror nerd, like my sci-fi too. So this podcast focuses on those really. Look at all sorts of movies in those genres, but mainly we focus on franchises and the lesser known and lesser liked sequels and see if we can find good things about those. And a lot of these movies I like, and I do know a lot of people who like these sort of movies. For example, the Nightmare on Elm Street sequels are very popular indeed. You go to any Comic-Con and there'll be a cast member there who may have played a teenager in one of these movies who lasted 5 minutes but still very popular with fans. More recently, Final Destination, Scream, stuff like that. And when it comes to sci-fi, obviously there's Star Trek, loads of Star Trek sequels, God knows how many movies, loved by millions, but often get slated. So we're going to focus on some of those. And don't get me wrong, I don't like all these movies, and if I don't, I'll talk about it. It's one of these things, but try to find the good in them. And if they are a bit naff, we can have a laugh with them. If you listened to the first episode, which I hope you did, and if you did, thank you very much. We started the first of two parts on the Candyman franchise, where we spoke about the original one from, was it 92, and then the remake or reboot, really. It wasn't really a remake, it was a reboot sort of sequel that came out only a few years ago. And James Rowe joined me from King Street Cinema, and we had a big chat about those two movies. And this is the second part to that, and we're going to discuss the two sequels, the two original sequels, part 2 and part 3. Not so well known, didn't get so well reviewed or make so much money. The third one actually went straight to video at the time, but has been reissued. We'll talk about all about that in a sec. But firstly, I do want to say thanks for everyone who's followed the pages on Spotify, on Instagram, Facebook, and I've got my own personal one. If you look up Andy Martin on Blue Sky, ANDEE, then Martin, where I talk about this podcast and other stuff I do. Thanks for the follows. Thanks for everyone who's listening. Loads coming up. But I'll be back after the main bit with James. We talk about Candyman. I'm going to review very quickly a recent release that should still be at cinemas if you're listening to this when it first comes out. And I'll be telling you some of the stuff we've got coming up on future episodes. So here we go. James is going to join me now, and we're going to discuss Candyman parts 2 and 3. Farewell to the Flesh, Candyman 2. James, welcome back.
Hi.
How you been? It's been a week.
Yeah, I've been all right. Yeah.
Good. And you filled your brain with 2 more Candyman movies.
Yeah.
There's the second and third.
Yeah. That's right.
Both of these you've not seen before.
Not until we were going to be doing this podcast. I've seen them both twice now.
Okay, so that's reassuring. That's the fact that you can watch them both twice.
Yeah.
Because if anyone listened to the last episode, big fan of the original.
Indeed, one of my favourite horror films of all time.
And probably for that reason you avoided watching the sequels.
Indeed, absolutely true, 100%.
Okay, and then thank you very much for doing that for this podcast. And let's dive right into it.
Yeah, let's get right into
Candyman 2.
Yeah, Farewell to the Flesh.
Yeah, and you're going to summarise the plot for us, yeah?
Yeah, very quickly, I'll just go run through it. So we're in a different location now, originally in Chicago. This straight away, no messing around, new location, New Orleans. Great location, lovely idea, fantastic. So anyway, we start with a guy from the original film who's only in one scene, Professor Purcell, but he's the guy who gave us the original backstory for Candyman. He's on book tour in New Orleans.
Is it the same actor?
It's the same actor.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I tried to look, I couldn't really find him.
Michael McCulkin, yeah. I think his name is, British actor.
We mentioned him, how
mostly
theatre
theatre.
Was in the last...
Yeah, so he's playing the character exactly how it was before, very pompous, know-it-all. Yeah. This time he's selling a book on the Candyman, not believing the Candyman, but on the myth of the Candyman, because that's his whole thing as a professor, really.
Yeah.
So it turns out that there's a guy living in New Orleans whose father has recently died, murdered, it seems, that he believes by the Candyman, and believes that Purcell is responsible because he told his father to say Candyman 5 times into the mirror, which he did, and then died. So he's blaming this professor for that. The professor has also said Candyman into a mirror as well to prove to his audience on the book tour that it's completely safe to do so.
What a fool.
What a fool. And of course, subsequently dies.
Yeah, one of the only deaths in the franchise I wanted.
Okay. So that's our opening pre-credits. Then we have credits setting up our situation where we are, and we meet our protagonist of the film, Annie. And Annie is a school teacher of art. She's an artist herself. Turns out to be the sister of the guy who came to Purcell. So her father is the one who has died by the hands of Candyman, of course. But we don't, we're still playing into this idea similar to the first one that maybe somebody else is doing the murders, right? Yeah. Of course, we know as an audience that it's Candyman. We've already seen him. There's no, again, we're sequel time. It's not, ooh, is it or isn't it kind of thing. Yeah, we know, so we've already seen him straight away.
And it is him. It's not gone Friday the 13th Part 5.
No, it's no sort of copycats or something else. So we follow Annie, who again is really interested in trying to figure out why her father. So it's a mystery basically into why her father has done what he has done. Her brother is also is a suspect and is being held by the police for the death of her father, and also some other deaths that we hear about that are done similarly in the area in New Orleans. And so that really is the plot. So following Annie, following her, discover more and more things about her past, about where she comes from. And turns out she's related to the Candy.
Yeah.
So it's quite nicely done. I quite like the pacing of this, of how we learn bits and pieces. Obviously, if you come in it knowing horror films and these kind of stories already, you get that quite early on, that more than likely they are relations. That this is there's a bloodline here that has led to this character, and that he's back again, trying to bring his family into the fold, so to speak.
Yeah. It is really another Candyman story.
Yeah. But it is Candyman.
It is, and it does link to the first movie.
Very much so.
Yeah. More so than I remember it linking to it.
Right.
And I think it's well done. There's a few little things in it I didn't like. For example, there's like a DJ narration throughout. Yeah.
So okay, I'm going to speak on. You don't like that. I don't either, but I get it.
Yeah.
Because it's New Orleans. It's Mardi Gras. We'll set the scene. We're in the time of Mardi Gras, right? So that's a big, huge celebration. That's Carnival, as they call it, which also, as we're told by the DJ, means farewell to the flesh. So that's why the title is what it is. So that nicely ties up, and he's there as a sort of what would you say? Kind of not telling us the story. It's not like a noir narration where we're being told what we're seeing and all of that, and how the main characters are feeling. It's just giving you a mood, setting the mood for what's going on, which I don't mind so much. It's a bit corny, but I don't mind it.
It keeps reminding me of Do the Right Thing, which there's a ring in the cast. And I get the feeling that might have influenced why they've done it. But what's the guy? So is it Bill Nunn?
Bill Nunn is in it.
Yeah, he's in
Do the Right Thing. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to me, it annoyed me a bit. I don't hate it, but just with the way the other films are done, it isn't like that. So for me, it sort of stood out as being a bit different, and I'm not sure it quite worked.
Well, the original 3 films are all set in a different place and different cities, and have a different tone each one. I think each one has its own kind of thing going on, which makes it its own in a way. And this one is about being set in New Orleans at the time of Mardi Gras. Is that kind of party insane? We have a lot of shots of people having sex in the street. People are partying, going crazy. The whole Mardi Gras thing is happening. So there's this chaos, sort of chaos surrounding the film. Which I think that, like say, the DJ, the way he speaks, he's got that amazing New Orleans accent and stuff, clearly from the area. Probably is a real DJ. I don't know. It kind of, I think it sets it quite nicely, but I do understand that it is corny.
Yeah, and then you sort of warm to it as the film goes on. When the more it happens, the more it kind of works. But it does remind me of when you watch a cheesy film and they turn the news on, and it's right at the beginning of the story of what's...
it's very much that kind of thing.
It's not, it's not like a major flaw. I just thought. Yeah,
I agree that it is. When I first heard it, I was like, oh. Yeah. But when I got more and thought about more of its location and stuff and what it's doing, I was like, okay, it's okay.
Yeah. One big standout for this film, I think it's got a pretty damn good cast.
Yeah, I think everyone in it's good. I think
everyone in it, I think, is good. Kelly Ronan, I don't think I've seen her in anything.
Yeah,
else. I thought she was great. She's in The Gate. But I'm guessing she was a kid in The Gate.
Yeah, well, that's 10 years previous, isn't it?
At least 10 years.
Yeah, because she's young in this. She's got to be like early 20s.
Yeah, and she went on to be in The OC. And
right. So she's TV more, I tell you.
Yeah, and she was a model first.
Right, yeah.
And I think she gives a good performance. Her brother he was in Hot Shots and stuff.
Right, yeah.
He's good. Bill Nunn's obviously good.
Yeah, solid. Plays a priest, father to one of the school kids that Andy teaches, who is having visions of Candyman and drawing him himself.
Yeah.
Which is, I like that, but it's not explained necessarily why. So you think, why is this boy who we're not told has any connection to Candyman as in relation to, is having visions of him. Of course, Annie's having them as well, and of course, then he comes into her life properly. But there is this sense that there is something looming over the family, because there's this. It is a family secret ultimately. Yeah. That Candyman is a relation.
Yeah, and speaking of the family, Veronica Cartwright.
Yeah, plays the mother. Fantastic as always. Yeah. Playing, drunk, hysterical.
Over the top. She's always good, and in this,
hiding the secret. The one with the secret. She knows the secret, but she's been hiding it from everybody.
Yeah, I think she's great in this. Probably the standout performance.
Yeah,
not in enough of it for me, but when she is on screen,
it's great.
It's great, and I saw an interview with her, and she seemed to really enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm sure she did. It looked like a fun shoot.
Yeah, and seeing her shake dickhead down the phone is a great little moment.
Yeah,
I think she's in Alien. Basically, Body Snatchers remake, and even in The Birds as a kid, wasn't she?
Yeah, very young. Yeah,
I think she's still a very underrated actress.
Yeah,
still acting. I met her at Comic-Con not long ago.
Yeah,
very friendly. One of those that she was there for Alien.
Yeah,
I don't think people. She was just sort of there. There was a bit of a curious stuff. I don't think people was aware who she was.
Oh, that's a shame.
Which is a weird one, because I think if this was a Comic-Con, if she was at a horror festival, there'd be queuing up.
Oh yeah, you would have thought so. I mean, she was also in Witches of Eastwick.
She's great in that as well.
And going back to sci-fi, I mean, Daryl was a great sci-fi, family sci-fi film.
Was she not the mum in Flight of the Navigator? Or something?
Oh no, that's what I'm thinking of. Sorry, I'm mixing them up. Flight of the Navigator. Sorry, not Daryl. So thank you for correcting me. That's correct. Yeah. Flight Navigator is the one. But again, still a classic family sci-fi film.
Yeah, great. And also, I do want to mention the cop. There's a asshole of a cop.
Oh yes,
who looks
I've got it. I think I wrote it down just Dick.
Yeah. He looks like Angel from Buffy.
Yeah.
And and he is just horrible throughout the film.
So his reasoning for being horrible is because Annie and her family are quite affluent, come from a rich background.
Yes.
He's just jealous of the fact that they're rich, and so he just wants to get the family in any way he can. And so they're holding the brother, and he just completely convinced 100% that he did it, and not only that, but with a vengeful, like, I want to get him, because I hate the fact that he's got money. And that. So it's like, what a dick.
There are some, I'm going to do it, there's some great kills in this movie.
There are.
And his death is fantastic.
Yeah, it is. Probably the best in the film, really.
Yeah, and another, is it the same? No. There is a death. I'm getting confused. I watched the 2 and 3 more or less back to back.
Yeah.
There's a death you see at one point in the film happen when the Candyman lifts someone up.
Yeah.
And then later on you see it on a CCTV.
Yeah, this is the detective.
And I think that
because that's how the other detective realizes that old Candyman's real.
Yeah. He gets thrown through.
You can't see Candyman on the footage, but you see him being picked up and.
Yeah, I think it's done really well.
Yeah.
There's a few kills like that. There's a few weird bits as well. Like there's the Mardi Gras sort of parade going across the road, and Jesus is there.
Yeah,
and it's a few weird, surreal moments.
Yeah, but that's very Mardi Gras. That's very much the sort of thing you would see at Mardi Gras.
Yeah, and it's just the whole looking at them, and it's sort of,
there's an intensity that's kind of like, oh, what the hell, it's kind of, there's fear, paranoia, this idea that people are watching, and he's got this whole thing that you see. There's a bit with his kids as well, and one of them points at her and say, "All will be punished, including you," or something like that. And it's like, is he saying that through? Is Candyman talking like through him, or is he just some kid who's just trying to freak you out, sort of thing?
Yeah,
there's this kind of paranoia that's running through the whole town or city at the time. As far as Annie's concerned, anyway, rightfully so.
But I do think so much this stuff works. Even her being a school teacher, that stuff I think.
It's good. Absolutely, it feels right. It feels like you can believe it from her. She doesn't come across as like, oh yeah, you wouldn't be doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, and one thing in this movie, maybe we did touch on it earlier. Obviously, in the first one, there's like the romance side between Candyman and Helen. Yeah. And in this, it's not romance, it's more family.
Yeah.
And they've taken that out of it. And I think the studio, with the first one, we did mention this last time, was they didn't like the interracial relationship.
Yeah.
So in this, it's changed. I don't know if that's the reason, or they just want to do something different.
What we do have, though, which we have to obviously touch on story-wise, because it leads into the next movie, is that Annie is pregnant.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And Candyman is very interested in that fact because it is, again, the continuation, the bloodline of himself.
Yeah.
And so he wants. I think what he wants, because we're now, when we talk about what he really wants, it's interesting, I think, because there's no 100% like understanding, like proper understanding. It's very supernatural. Yeah. Like he wants his family to be dead with him, but in some way they would live in a bigger, broader sense, in a very, in a kind of in the minds of people, which would bring his whole power, the fear that he has on people, even stronger and more intensely.
Yeah.
And so it's really kind of for us, like, thinking that sounds insane, obviously, because that's just mad talk.
Yeah.
For him, obviously, in his world, in his supernatural world, it's not. So when you think of like families wanting to protect people, you want to protect your family. You don't want to kill them. But as far as he's concerned, killing them would be the best thing for them.
Yeah.
So it's really, kind of like, it feels counterintuitive. You think, why is he trying to kill his family? But it's like, well, if he does, in the way that he does, they become these powerful entities.
Yeah, so there's more to it than you'd think.
Yeah.
Because as we said before, it gets lumped in with these slasher movies, and there's more to it.
Yeah, completely. It's not just about him wanting to kill.
Yeah. And I mean, that's something we can sort of get onto the third one soon. But I was very impressed with this. Very good director as well. I mean, he went on to do Dreamgirls, Gods and Monsters. Worked with what's the guy from Gods? Ian McCallum a lot.
Yeah.
And he also done 2 of the Twilight movies.
Right.
I know in sort of horror circles they're sort of frowned upon, but big movies.
Yeah, these are big movies. Yeah.
And, to be fair, I'm going to say I don't hate those movies. I think they're okay.
I've never seen them
for what they are.
Yeah.
And he also was a writer on The Greatest Showman.
Yeah.
So Bill
Codden.
Yeah.
Condon. Yeah.
Carefully say it because it might sound like Condon. But yeah, looking at the first, is there anything else you want to add? Because I was going to sort of.
Well, what I like about this film overall, knowing who's involved in it as well. Just going to that, Philip Glass is back doing the music, which is great. So he still holds the film, again, part of the film very powerfully and intently. Which when you think Candyman, a big part of that is you think of the music.
Yeah.
So that's great that that's still there, and that. I like that this is, again, executive produced by Clive Barker, who originally wrote the short story The Forbidden, which is all based on, and wrote the story to this. So this is a continuation, in a way, of his imaginings, right, of how he sees, at least partially sees, the direction that Candyman should go.
Yeah, it's like he has seen the change from the short story to the film. First film, and then he's done it.
He's carrying that. Yeah,
because the original director's script was rejected
completely. The only bit that wasn't was the opening scene. In fact, with Cell Professor getting what happens to him there. That part was Bernard Rowe's. But everything else was removed. Changed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised because when this came out, it got mostly negative reviews. That does surprise me. But it might be one of those people expected different. Or they expected it to be almost more of a clever of a film like the first one.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Candyman, the original Candyman, I think was quite split in what people thought of it. I think a lot of people loved it, obviously, and then there were a lot of people that weren't so keen on it either, as well. And I'm pretty sure that people that loved the first one would have found this one quite difficult to get through and think, oh, this isn't, because there is a lot to it that's changed in the mood and the tone of it, the way it's filmed, the way it feels. Moving the setting to New Orleans, giving him a lot of backstory that wasn't in the original film, so it's fine.
It's expanded.
It's expanded. It's because there wasn't much given to us in the original film, which I like, because it leaves the interpretation up for the idea of the myth could be anywhere. Where this is now, we are now saying that Candyman was born here, right, in New Orleans, and I think as not just a son of a child of slaves, but also maybe slave himself. It gets a bit kind of funny because we've always had the idea in the first film that he born from slaves but grew up in affluent society, and that kind of is a bit kind of vague here. Where I think they're more touching on the slave element, that he comes from slaves, and that is really crucially important to everything that evolved around his death, which is true. You could still say that from the original story, but it's not generally made in completely, full on. That is what it was. Where, of course, but we are not removed from the fact that he did end up in a relationship with a white woman, with Caroline Sutherland, who, of course, had a child with him and continues on the lineage to this point now with Annie. That's all important and is shown in flashbacks, and it's good. The flashbacks are good because they're not just given to us as in like, here you go, audience. It's been given to Annie. He's showing Annie his past, which in turn we then see, and that's good, right? That's a good plot device. Shows the reasoning why we are seeing it. Right. So I like that.
Yeah. So it done okay. It cost $6 million and made $13.9 million.
Yeah.
So nothing on the success of the first one.
No.
But still okay. A few little facts. They had to change. Well, they decided to change the artwork because of all what was going on at the time with O.J. Simpson. Mm-hmm. Obviously, black man killing a white woman.
Yeah.
And I think that might have scared the studio a bit when releasing it. Mm-hmm. It did affect it, and they on promotion tours and stuff. It was coming up all the time. Apparently, Tony Todd said in interviews.
Yeah.
And the lead role of Annie was offered to horror actress Tuesday Night. She turned it down and said it's the only film she regrets turning down.
Yeah, the only horror film she ever regretted turning down.
Yeah. But she's known for horror, but if you look at it, she's not actually in that much.
No.
Not well-known stuff, like B movies.
No, she was in it's known for Nightmare on Elm Street 4.
Yeah, and I think she might have been in, was it Night of the Demons or something like that? One of those
right,
films.
Yeah, maybe it might be. I've seen the first one. I can't remember her in it, but it was a long time ago.
She might be in the second one.
Right.
Yeah. Because the first one's Quigley in it.
Yes.
Who's in a lot of horror films.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and on nowadays, if you look at modern reviews, not great. 2.6 out of 5 on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
5.3 on IMDb and 21% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah. I think it deserves a bit better than that, personally.
Well, I mean, I'd give it a 3, but a good 3. I mean, there are a lot of things to it which aren't, it's too safe, I think, a film. And I think some of the ideas don't quite work so well for me, as far as just the backstory and everything becomes a little bit sort of too muddled and a bit too I'm not too sure about this. I do like that it's moved location in a way, because I like the idea that Candyman can exist anywhere, because we already understand that. We understand that from the first film that there are people everywhere with this understanding of this urban legend. So I'm fine with that. But there's just a little bit. It's not as strong as the first one by a long way on all accounts, sadly. But it's still a good movie. I think it's still worth watching if you like. If you like Candyman, I do think this one is worth watching. Yeah. But don't expect anything brilliant from it. Yeah. But just if you go in with that headspace, I think it's fine. Yeah.
I'd forgotten what I'd given it, even though I only reviewed it a day or so ago. 3.5 from me.
Yeah, it was 3.5.
Because I just really enjoyed it. There was no filler. There was no boring bits for me.
Yeah, there's nothing boring.
And to be fair, I enjoyed it all the way through. I hadn't seen it for a long time. And I think I enjoyed it more this time because I've watched the other ones around the same time.
Right.
And I realised how much it all fitted in and that sort of thing. And basically, it's so much better than I thought it would be.
I agree. I agree with that because that's why I didn't see it for so long, because I just thought it was not going to be good at all.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be decent enough.
Yeah.
Decent enough horror film for the mid-90s, absolutely.
Okay, so let's move on. 4 years' time. The third Candyman, the only one to go straight to video or DVD.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with reviews on this one first. Not ours, but the overall. So Candyman 3, Day of the Dead, released in 1999. 3.9 out of 10 on IMDb. 1.8 out of 5 on Letterboxd. And Rotten Tomatoes, 7%.
Right. That's not good, is it?
That's not good at all.
That's really not good.
No.
That's got to be one of the worst that of all films that I think we've ever covered in other podcasts.
Yeah.
That's probably got to be one of the worst percentage points, I'd say.
Yeah, it's got to be. But we'll get on to it because I don't think it's that bad.
I will agree. I don't think it's 7% bad.
No.
Out of 100%.
Yeah. So, do you want to very quickly
okay, all right. So we are jumping to the film comes out in 1999, but we are jumping 25 years from the second film, right?
Can I
to 2020?
Can I mention as well?
Yeah.
Where does it say it's set in 2020?
That's interesting, isn't it? Because it doesn't say that. But
there's a reveal.
But the character. It may say at some point, they might mention it, because of course, before we get into the plot, it's set in 2020 or into the future. I'll explain why we definitely know that for a second. But everything feels like the late 90s, all right? Everything is late 90s, straight to video American stuff, or even TV stuff.
I've got two words come to mind while watching this.
Yeah.
Melrose Place.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. So that kind of thing, that feel is all over this movie. So the reason why we could just figure it out in our own heads is because the character that we are following, our protagonist here, who is Caroline, is the daughter of Annie, and she's grown up.
This is the thing, because to start with, I'm like, well, that's obviously the daughter.
Yeah.
And then she's got a different surname.
Yes. She has the surname of her father.
Okay, but
right?
Yeah, but was it 100% concrete it's her till you see the gravestone at the end? Because it doesn't say her mum's name, does it?
Now that's a good point.
Yeah.
I think. Well, no, we understand. We do understand. She looks the actress is different because we see the actress is a different actress, though she looks very similar to the one who played Annie in Fell to the Flesh. But the way she's talking about her is we get this. It's a very much implied.
I think it's implied all the way through the film.
Yeah, but it's not said outright.
Yeah,
and then you see the gravestone
with the name on it.
Tarrant.
So I think it's for fans it's obvious.
Yeah.
And for some.
Yeah. If you hadn't seen the other movies, you'd have had no idea.
Yeah. But I think that this is sort of almost a flaw to the film is it's like. It's sort of hinting all the way through, but we know it is. There's no, there's enough in there to. I'm not sure whether the screenwriters thought we'd all be shocked at the end when they reveal this.
I don't know. Oh, they go, wow, snap. Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Yeah. But it is a bit confusing. So,
it is. It is like you say. If this is the only one you'd seen. But the story is so simple that it would not make a difference to your enjoyment of the movie. You don't need to know the other movies to understand what's going on in Candyman 3, Day of the Dead. Yeah. So let's just say it's 2020 roughly.
Yeah.
Little Caroline, who we meet at the end of the first one, by the way. It's quite a nice ending at the end of the second one. She says the name, silly girl. Anyway, so she's all grown up and she's having dreams of Candyman.
Yeah.
Now she doesn't believe in Candyman. And she again is another artist. So there's artists, of course. Candyman was an artist. We must never forget that. As a human being, when he was Daniel Robitaille, he was a famous artist. Yeah. So art is in his blood, in the bloodline. Caroline, artist. But what she really wants to do is to show her great-great-grandfather, Daniel Robitaille's art, his own art. Not as Candyman, but as Daniel Robitaille. That's her mission, is to get his art out there to the world as the man, not the monster. So that's where we begin, really. That's our sort of setting. Art dealer at the gallery, really wants to sell the Candyman angle.
Prick.
Yeah. So he's a bit of a silly, you'd say like a silly guy. If you know the backstory of Candyman, it's like, you dude are dead. You are a living dead human being.
He's also one of the many male dickheads in this.
Yeah, there are many silly men in this movie, and the franchise in general. They put out all these paintings up in the gallery. Caroline is taunted into saying his name into the mirror. Of course, she does. Candyman comes back. All hell breaks loose. Most people end up getting dead that she knows.
Getting a good killing.
She meets a dude who helps her out, and that's pretty much it, really.
The guy who helps her out was an actor paid to the exhibition,
which is a callback to to Farewell to Flesh. Because Purcell also does this trick where he has someone pretending to be Candyman in order to scare everybody.
You say callback, I say lack of originality.
Both, I think, are applicable in this case.
And the plot is very simple. This is definitely another chapter in the Candyman.
Yeah, I do like the idea of the continuation of the bloodline. Yeah. Right, I love the idea that Caroline is now grown up. She has the name, of course, of Daniel Robitaille's lover before he was Candyman, which is nice. That's a nice little touch there. I like the idea that it's a continuation. His goal, his mission is the same. We have a coherent, want and desire in our. I don't know if we can call him our villain, really, but he's this is the whole thing about Candyman. The story is so you can look at it in many ways. That he is in a way himself. The victim, of course, he was killed in a really horrific way. As man, he's back to get some form of what he sees as justice or revenge, and to keep people in fear of his his existence. Whilst at the same time, the love of his family is so strong that he wants the bloodline to remember him and to be with him, so that this can continue. This I don't know what you call it. If it's desire, mission, reason for existing, I love all that stuff, but the film itself does it in such a Buffy the Vampire kind of charmed kind of way.
It's a weird one. It's very late 90s, and 99 this was made. But it's like they're trying to go. And I will add now that I enjoyed this film more than most people would. I'm saying,
right?
But it's made like Beverly Hills 90210, that sort of thing. But it's trying to be a Nightmare on Elm Street sequel. That's making more of a, it's about Candyman. He's on screen more.
Yeah, he's on screen much more.
More of these take the people out one by one deaths. And even the actor who plays the actor who plays the actor who helps her was in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah,
he was in the original one, wasn't he? He was one of the kids. So that I'm thinking of it because of that. But it was released in 1999, where audience are kind of done with that. Freddy's been killed twice since then. It's 5 years since New Nightmare even came out. Screams happened. Blair Witch happened that year. Sixth Sense happened that year.
Yeah.
The audience, this should have been made a few years before. And they should.
I think I agree, but then we'd have to really knock the whole Candyman story back a few years, because by the time the second one comes out in 95, I think that's it.
Yeah, but this is the reason why this was made just for video. Yeah. So maybe they know that.
Yeah,
they know, and they're like, right. So there are these fans. Mm-hmm. Let's cut the budget back.
Oh yeah,
which they did. Something a bit weird with the budget on this one as well. I don't know if you read that.
Yeah.
It had a $3 million budget.
It's probably about $1 million.
About $1 million, so $2 million is sort of vanished.
Yeah,
and so made just for video. And one thing, a few of the cast are good. But I feel for the main actress in this.
She's not good, though.
She's trying.
Yeah.
It's the first film. She was in Baywatch. I don't know if she's in Baywatch before or after this.
I don't know.
Probably. But she's struggling.
Yeah, really struggling.
And also, when you look at, is it Donna DeRico or something like
That's
that?
her name, yeah.
Yeah,
Donna DeRico,
yeah. Donna DeRico. She's married to Nikki Sixx, so obviously has issues. So she was, around this time, she was married to Nikki Sixx.
Who was in a band, I believe.
In the Motley Crue. Love Motley Crue. But so she was in the limelight a lot, so I think they probably got her cheap. But publicly, she's in National Enquirer and that sort of stuff.
Yes.
And interview with Tony Todd said that she was really nice and was there 100% for the film.
Yeah.
But when you look at the the two leads in the first two films both had great acting chops, so to speak. They were both really, really good and carried the film.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, and also the character isn't as good, basically, as the character.
No, I mean, the story's not very well fleshed out. It's very simple. It's very much wants you to... though you don't, like I said earlier, you don't need to have seen the earlier films.
No.
But it does, in a way, want you to... It would prefer it if you did.
No, I mean, if I saw this first in 1999, I'd been 18, I'd have enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I'd have definitely gone back and watched the other two.
Yeah, I mean, it's got enough in there that we talk, that I talked about from the original film, or at least certainly the second one.
Yeah.
Where we're like, oh, right, okay. Yeah, there's a lot being filled in here. Again, because ultimately the story is so surfacey, you probably wouldn't even need to notice any of that to enjoy it, right? Yeah. You just get the idea that there's this creature, there's this spirit creature that is connected to this woman, and it wants her, and at the same time wants to kill. And that's it. That's all really you'd need. You don't really need anything else. Oh, and there's a thing with her mother as well, and all these kind of... there's a lot of dream sequences in this.
Yeah, this is another Freddy...
Yeah, there's very dreamy kind of thing, which, again, is not a problem, but it's like, not really Candyman necessarily.
Exactly, yeah. But also, it's... I'll get it with something. I don't want to avoid the elephant in the room. There's a lot of unnecessary nudity in this film.
There is,
which there isn't in
the
others.
In the other two, there is a little tiny bit of nudity that is. Well, the second one has a shot of her in the shower, but again, you don't see very much, which I thought not necessarily necessary. Yeah. And in the first one, there is that wonderful, heartbreaking scene where Helen needs to take her clothes off in the police station because she's been arrested for murder, and that's very true to how it would be, right?
Yeah, that's.
And we don't see anything.
She's nude in that scene to show her distress.
Yes,
to make you see what she's going through. Yeah. Whereas in this, the lead actress who had done Playboy as well, didn't want to do nudity.
She doesn't.
So she doesn't know. So it looks like the director's just like any other chance for nudity thrown it in.
Yeah, there's a lot.
The mum had killed herself in the bath, so you see a nude then, you see a nude when she comes back from the dead.
Yeah.
And then there was various
one of the women killed earlier on as well was also naked. Because
did they go in a strip bar or something as well, or was that?
They do. Yeah. I can't remember if there was. I think there might be nudity there.
So it's like this stood out to me, so to speak, because boobs, but because it's not like that.
No, it's not like the other films. But
but the other films being older, you'd expect it in a film in the early 90s less than in the late 90s.
Yeah, there's certainly. The first time I watched it, I was like, oh, okay, like this is here now because it wasn't in the first before. It's here now to give it something else. Like they need to give it, this. Please pay attention, kind of thing, Which I get it. I do get it because, like I say, the plot's not very strong. The acting generally isn't very great. The direction is TV at best.
Yeah. There's some harsh reviews on Letterboxd about the director.
I bet. Never heard of the director. Don't know if the director did anything else.
He's done a few real lowbrow sort of B-movie horrors,
right?
Sleep Stalker, Alien Express. Alien Express was after, but he was a writer on Leprechaun 2.
Okay.
Wrong Turn 2.
Oh,
and
he's a sequel guy.
And a comedy classic starring Carrot Top, chairman of the board.
Oh God. Okay. So that all makes sense. And this is probably the most sophisticated movie he made then. I mean, I don't mind it. Like, I went into this film going, this is going to be so bad that I'll just probably fall asleep.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I watched it all the way through.
Well
I was like, okay, all right. For what it is, I just kept thinking Tony Todd is clearly just trying his best.
He's down as a producer as well.
Yeah, he's trying so hard to legitimize this movie, give it some breath of seriousness. I was like, man, well done you, because you did succeed ultimately, because you could have really gone, nah, forget it. Yeah, I'm going to be in the movie, but I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do much. You're not hardly going to see me. I'll just slice up a couple of young people. That'll be it. But he didn't. He's got some proper scenes where he's doing a lot of communicating with Caroline and therefore to us, to give us again more feelings about the backstory, about who he is as a person.
Yeah.
I love it. Brilliant. Well done, Tony Todd. Fantastic.
This is another there is more of the backstory. The romances you see more, but also that there's nudity in the backstory as well.
Yeah,
they're making sex.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, actually, yes. Yeah, she's naked because he's doing a sort of painting of her and stuff, and it turns out that she's now nude. So again, I mean, of course, that whole thing almost feels like parody, almost like fan fiction. Now we've got into fan fiction of Candyman, which is a real shame, and my brain does switch off with that. I don't think, this is Candyman. You know, the only moments I say it, like later on when he's doing these monologue, well, not monologues, he's talking to Caroline, but he's speaking quite a lot and speaking quite passionately. I love that. I go, you see, look, this is what, look, you have probably the greatest one for horror icons. I actually think he's probably the best actor there's ever been, Tony Todd, to be a horror icon. It's amazing. He's doing this film is like lowbrow as cheap as you can possibly get, really. But there is stuff in there. There's this guy, this proper actor, doing what he can to give it any legitimacy. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, and we've been interviews with him. There's a fairly decent Blu-ray release of this come out a year or so ago, and an interview with Tony Todd, and he says that he enjoyed making the film. He liked everyone on set. In other interviews, he said that it was a regrettable addition to the franchise. So basically, he's saying he enjoyed it, but it was a bit of a mistake.
Yeah.
But there are elements in there I like. And you know me, I love a cheap sequel if it's fun.
Yeah.
And this is that.
Yeah.
And then when you look at other films, like one I always go to, like RoboCop 3, for example, this knocks that out of the ballpark. This is
it's more, you can pay attention to this more.
Yeah. And if they made 2 or 3 more films like this, I wouldn't be in the queue at the theatres to see them, but I'd definitely watch them.
Right.
And they'd be in my Blu-ray collection of cool, weird films.
Yeah. Okay.
It's cheap. But for the budget, some of the deaths and stuff are well
done. They are good. The killings, because so that element to it is different to TV. I mean, the kind of gore that's on screen here is not the sort of thing that you would have on television. But those are done really well. Yeah, and they sort of stick out.
And the sort of BFX and stuff are all
done by the guy who did them in the original 2 movies. Did them for a lower fee because he wanted still to be involved in the franchise.
Yeah. But what it is lacking is that score. There's different music.
So,
they've got some bloke in who sort of sounds like Massive Attack or something.
Yeah, it does. It just sounds like late 90s, kind of awful.
Which is a shame, but Glass didn't let him use the music.
No, he was not interested.
I don't think he wanted to do the second one.
No, but he did though. He did, which is nice.
That's probably because of who was attached to the, but the music lets it down. It's the longest of the franchise, interestingly.
Only just, though.
Yeah, it doesn't feel long to me. Overall, it's the weakest of the franchise, I'd say. But it's one of the most fun.
I'm going to say this: as much as you are right, in all technicality, by a long way, it is the worst of the films. I still prefer this to the one that was made recently. Right?
Would you agree? It's not a better film, but you prefer it.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. I mean, look, Jordan Peele knows how to make movies, right? Him and his team, they will make movies look great. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I still prefer this.
Yeah. So shall I do my top 4 and then you do my order of them? Then
sure.
Okay. So for me, it's 1, 2, 4. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's my how I enjoy them.
Yeah.
But as good films go, it's 1, 4, 2, 3.
Yeah, I mean, probably. I probably would agree with that. I will probably have a bit of. I could probably go 4 and 2 back and forth about what I think is probably. I think if Jordan Peele was around and the team was around in the mid-90s, I don't think they would have made a movie the way they make them now.
Yeah. Right? I mean, that one is made for this generation.
It feels much for the time. Yeah. So I don't know. I think 2 is as good as 4. Right?
Yeah. I mean,
as far as the technicalities and the kind of the way that movies were made and the thinking, the process that was like for the kind of stuff that was put out in cinemas at that time, I as a sequel, I think it's I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas in the most recent one, I don't know. I think there's just too much. There's too much that's not Candyman, and as good as it can look on the surface, it is still quite muddled and not really that well told, and rushed in certain places. There's a lot of stuff that's clearly missing from the film.
But also for me, it might be my generation. My age, I'm 43.
Yeah.
People in the art scene in the 90s seemed quite cool. People in the art scene seem like complete.
I can understand that thinking, and I would agree. But in the sense that this generation's probably worse, but they're all bad. I don't want to be near any of them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But overall, firstly, rating.
Okay, of 3.
Third one.
I will give it a generous 3. 3. Right?
I've given it 3, which is lower than I gave the fourth one. I didn't say it's a better film, so I enjoyed it more.
Yeah.
But you got to think the reason I'm doing this podcast is because I like sort of trashy.
Yeah, well, this is it. So this is a podcast that's going to touch on a lot of lesser known horror movies, so sequels of big horror movies, the ones that people forget about or don't watch and stuff, right? There's going to be a lot of that sort of trashy stuff.
That's the point. I even considered not talking about the first one, but I'm glad we did because you can relate back and people know.
I think it's important.
So overall, the franchise as a franchise, how you like the first?
Yeah.
What are your feelings on it as a franchise as a whole now you've seen it?
Now, okay, so I'm not a massive fan of the concept of franchises, as it were. I don't really mind necessarily sequels and continuation stories, but just because you have a fantastic character who people like lots, I don't think that automatically should be, right, now we need to make loads of movies because of that. So that kind of always puts me off. But overall, the 4 films, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. I don't think it's bad. There's much worse. Yeah. Much worse.
And also, in 34 years, there's only been 4.
Exactly. And I don't mind that. So, like I say, I think 4 is good. 4 films. If they keep churning them out, which I don't think they're going to, there's not really. I mean, there's always talks of people, considering these things, writing, doing scripts and stuff. But there's nothing that sounds very concretey that there is going to be anymore. I'm happy with that. The sequels in no way change my feelings towards the first film. The first film, of course, they couldn't. I mean, the first film to me is just such a standalone, amazing horror film that,
But there's nothing in the sequels that affects the story of the first one, really, or...
No, I mean, other than what they've done recently, which I still don't think, doesn't really, of course it doesn't, but without them sort of moving Candyman on from just being the Candyman to Candymen, as it were, the impact and the importance of the first film will always stay, always remain.
One thing I'm surprised they haven't done a prequel with the backstory.
That's what Bernard Rose originally, the director of the first film, that was his intent, and the studio just wouldn't go for it because this is the irony, because they were completely terrified of the idea of telling a story, making a film about an interracial couple.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Like the irony that it's almost, it's almost satire.
Yeah. But I still think one day that could see the light of day, I still think if they do take it further, and now they can do it.
Yes.
And now there's Candyman as well. You could have more of the horror element with other Candymen influencing him. Because I think another thing with the studio, they would have been scared that it would have just been a drama that someone gets killed at the end of, not a horror.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, sure.
But now you could do it as a horror because of what it's.
Yeah, sure. I mean, of course, Tony Todd is no longer with us, so I mean that I think will play a part into people's thinking.
This is why I think they shouldn't.
Yeah.
But they could do, as it's now, Candyman, and he had been ill for a while, so I think they might have actually, when they were writing it, they might have written it so it could go on without him.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, they could have very easily have made that film without him having that little cameo at the end. Wouldn't have made a lick of difference.
But to be honest, that's why I rushed to see it opposed to just seeing it, because I thought there'd be more of it.
Yeah.
Honestly,
But
so overall, you're quite pleased with it.
Absolutely, it's fine. The franchise as a whole is absolutely fine. It doesn't annoy me or upset me in any way.
Good. So I'm going to say thank you, but also I'm going to say, have a think if there's any more franchises you'd like to talk about.
Yeah.
If any spring to mind now, say, but I'm planning on doing quite a few of these.
Yeah, but I mean, you got other people, of course.
I have,
and we have another podcast as well.
But no, so get it in your mind. So
I will have a think about that. Yeah,
another time.
Yeah,
I'll just throw it out. But I'm also going to look at hopefully either next episode or soon. I'm going to be comparing original and remakes.
Right.
So Ian Pointer's coming on, who's been on the King Street podcast. And we're going to talk about The Time Machine, the 1960 original, and then they remade it 90s or early 2000s with Guy Pearce.
Yeah, Guy Pearce.
So we're going to be talking about them, which so we're sort of doing horror and sci-fi, to be honest. And that it does fit in both.
I agree. I think fantasy, the whole fantasy, whether it's horror, sci-fi, fantasy. That whole kind of thing. That whole broad thing.
And have you seen The Time Machine before we go? Have you seen the 1960?
I have not. I don't think so.
No, have I?
It doesn't. It kind of like I've got like visions of it in my head, like pictures of it, but I don't think I've ever seen it all the way through.
Same. So I'm looking forward to that. So thanks for joining us, and don't forget you can catch James along with myself monthly on the King Street Cinema podcast.
Yeah.
Find it everywhere. Always good chatting with James about movies. That was fun. Hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as we did doing it. Hopefully I'll get James back. He sort of half sounded keen. Sure he'll come back. I can find something for him to talk about. Or he'll find something that he wants to talk about. But yeah, next episode, which should be up in a week or so, I'm going to focus on The Time Machine, the original version from 1960 based on the Wells novel from 1895, I remember correctly, and the remake in 2002 with Guy Pearce. And Ian Pointer, who'd done the logo to this show, is going to come on and talk about that. He loves a bit of sci-fi and sort of specialises really in time travel movies. I spoke to him about that. Back to the Future and some other ones on other podcasts. You may have heard, you may not have done, but it's should be a really interesting one. I'm looking forward to that. Also coming up, I'm sort of lining up guests. I'm going to focus on the House franchise. Going to talk about all of those. Ian's going to come back for at least one of them, maybe all of them actually. And the Phantasm franchise. Now Phantasm I'm really interested in doing because I've only ever seen the first one and I've had the others on DVD for quite some time. So I'm going to they're going to be fresh to me as I talk about them, and I'll find people who maybe haven't seen them as well to have a chat about that. So keep an eye on all the socials, and that will be fairly soon. I'm sort of pumping them out to start with, but then on average there should be an episode once or twice a month. See how it goes, because busy man, as I'm sure you're all busy as well, but I'll do my best. Enjoying doing it, so I'm going to keep them going. But also when I can on each episode, I'm going to talk about some newer releases. And I've literally just got back from the cinema and I saw Heart Eyes, the new horror comedy. It was more of a comedy than I thought it would be. Directed by Josh Rubin, who I haven't actually seen any of his films, but on my Letterboxd watch list for a long time now, I've had Werewolves Within and Scare Me, which he directed both of. I should have really got around to watching them, but I'm the sort of person that if I don't catch it at the cinema, it might be years before I see it. And that's another reason I'm kind of doing this podcast, to catch up on some of the movies I should have seen. Now, this is a Valentine's Day rom-com slasher movie with the Heart Eyes killer as the villain. He's sort of a new Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger type. Long black coat and big hearts for eyes. Goes around killing couples on Valentine's Day. It starts, like most slashers do, with a brutal couple killing, we'll call it, which very well done and funny. I don't want to spoil too much. I'll just give you the premise really, and then it turns into a rom-com for a bit until things turn dark later. Very silly movie. As I say, it's more of a comedy than I thought. Going by the trailer, you see it be lighthearted. I thought it would be lighthearted and comedy in the way that Scream is, but this is closer to start with anyway. It's a scary movie franchise and almost a bit sort of Naked Gun and that sort of thing at the beginning of the film. My main fault of it is, as you can probably guess from what I'm saying, it's kind of tonally all over the place. But I can't say I didn't enjoy it. There was one scene in particular that talked to me on the social after I don't want to do any spoilers, where I laughed out loud in the cinema, and there was only one other person in there who probably thought I was mental, but that did make me laugh. The cast are all great. Olivia Holt, who has been in several films recently, she's in Totally Killer, I saw. Can't think of anything off her hand, but she was in that, and great leading lady, or the final girl, so to speak. Mason Gooding, who recently was in Fall and the last two Scream movies. I think it's the last two he was in. Very recognisable face, and I looked it up, and that's where I recognise him from. He's going to be in the next Scream as well. So putting a face like that in might get the crowd it's after. Now, I'm 43 years old, and I've seen a lot of slasher films, and I still really enjoy them. A lot of people I know do get fed up with them. If you go into this as a comedy, I think you'll enjoy it more. It's certainly aimed at a younger audience than me, sort of people who haven't seen loads and loads of these movies. There's lots of modern references opposed to references to other horror films. But for a cinema release around Valentine's Day as well, you could do a lot worse than this. It would be I saw it on my own, but it would be a great date movie. And not particularly set up, but it could become a franchise, which often these movies try too hard to be. But this one, it could be, or it would work perfectly as a standalone one-off. So I'm going to give this 3.5 out of 5. Maybe, as I say, if you're a horror fan, don't expect scares, but do expect to enjoy it. And there's a difference. You see what I mean? It's, fun. The word fun is how I would describe it. And there was a trailer before it for The Monkey, which I'm going to try to see before the next episode, and I'll give a review of that. That's a horror film I'm really, really looking forward to, based on a Stephen King story. Great director, great cast. It can't let us down, can it? Nah, it's got to be a good one. Right, thank you very much for joining me, and as I said earlier, please follow us on the socials, give us a rating, 5 if you could, that would really help. Not that I want to beg, but if you don't like it, tell us, and we'll have a rethink. And I just want to talk about films and interact with me, and we can have a chat. And it's always good to disagree, as long as we don't get aggressive about it, because I don't want to become the podcast killer and then to make a movie franchise about me, because that would probably be a bad thing, even though now I'm thinking about it. No, I don't want to be famous for that reason. I don't want to be famous at all. I just want to talk about films. So, find us on the socials. Thank you very much. Thanks to Ian, as I mentioned earlier, who done the logo. And as ever, Talking Sleeve, James Howard, who done all the music for this show. And obviously to James Rowe, who was my guest this week and last. Thank you very much.